Thank you very much. And my first slide is just an indication of how traumatic climate change really is. If you're caught in one of the big extreme weather events now, it is utterly life-changing. And this was Australia when they were still talking about building coal-fired power stations in Australia. And I happened to be there when the fires were going, and it's very dramatic. So I'm going to talk to you about AURORA. It's an EU-funded project achieving a new European energy awareness. It's about doing something now. It's not about waiting to be told what to do by governments. It's a £4.6 million program. It's coordinated from Madrid. And the list of partners is shown along the bottom, and they're a mixture of universities, local government, and private sector. So an interesting mix. The objectives of the project are very clear, about upgrading local social communities into energy communities, to turn into citizen science hubs for energy transition. And the project is committed to raise €1 million from local people through crowdsourced funding to finance local renewable energy schemes of 1,000 kilowatt solar power. We're aiming to get 7,000 committed people involved in the project who will personally track their own carbon footprint, to monitor their habits on energy behaviors, on their travel, on their heating, and on their energy, and with targeted feedback and comparisons between individuals. It's about enabling people to act within their own community and at a domestic level through hands-on activities that will support a responsible energy transition using existing techniques and new ideas. And then creating ambassadors to go on and promote that behavioral change much more widely. And if you think about the partners that are involved in this program, 4 universities and 1 municipality. And I would challenge everybody here to take the messages away from AURORA back to your own universities and ask the question, why aren't you tracking what AURORA are doing? Why aren't you copying what AURORA are doing? To go back into your municipality and do exactly the same thing. Why aren't you moving more rapidly on climate change? This is an emergency. Why aren't you treating it like one? Why are you so complacent? Why are we missing all our targets? Because you can drive this from below. You don't have to be a victim of the fossil fuel industry. You don't have to be a fossil fool. You can change, and you can change from below. So this program is about mobilizing people and communities, raising awareness, tracking carbon with an app on your phone, putting money into crowdsourced funding for solar photovoltaic community facilities, innovating with new ideas, and then lots of people acting as ambassadors at all sorts of different levels to exploit the results. It's creating public-private local energy communities, and it's a real breakthrough in some countries to do this. This idea of being able to produce your own power and sell it to local people for their own use. So you're no longer reliant on centralized energy generation schemes. And it's not a footprint calculator that we're talking about for our app, it's a personal trainer. This is about you taking responsibilities for your carbon and driving those carbon levels down in line with the Paris Commission targets. It's about giving you a label as to where you are on that journey, as you would do with any electrical appliance. So there is a labeling scheme being developed so that you can compare your performance against others in a very simple way. There's an example of the app starting to be formed. It will become available at the end of this year and will start to go out into use in the communities. The community photovoltaic schemes are already developing in each of the pilot areas, and boy, are there problems in doing it. And the countries involved, Slovenia, Portugal, Spain, the UK and Denmark, all have different barriers, all trying to stop communities doing the very thing we want to do. And in your universities, the Aarhus University, for instance, when they started to have the discussions with the provost of the university, of course, the buildings are not owned by the university. They're owned by a third-party company. So you have to convince the third-party company. You have to have a contract with that company for the sale and purchase of the electricity. And you have to look at the legal framework within the country within which you're operating to see what you can do. And then you have to innovate and find ways around the barriers. I'm now just going to give you this, some of the examples of the areas where we're working. The Technical University of Madrid is interesting. They're the leaders of the project. And on that particular city, Madrid is committed to zero carbon by 2030. It realized it couldn't do it. So it's broken the city down into districts, one of which is around the university. So if the university can get to zero carbon through this program, it can have a knock-on effect immediately on its local community. And as I say, just imagine it's not 4 universities doing this, but all the universities in Europe, what a difference this would make. It's not just one municipality doing it, it's all the municipalities in the EU. I'll take you through what it means for one of the partners. This is the example from the Forest of Dean. It's where I live, and it's a municipality that's now looking to put a community-funded solar voltaic facility on a local school that will then provide energy to the local leisure centre, reducing costs for the leisure centre, reducing costs for the school, reducing carbon. And the way you pay for it is through crowdsourced funding, and the people who put money into the scheme can offset that against their carbon footprint. So there's a loop working here. And then it starts to ask you questions about your community. And this is just a simple example of one community that's then picked up on the AURORA program and said, well, actually, what does this mean for me? What is my community doing in terms of carbon emissions? And this is just all the communities in the Forest of Dean, showing where they sit in terms of their overall carbon emissions. And it's actually linked to socioeconomics. The left-hand side of the screen are the poorest areas, the right-hand side are the richest areas. Direct correlation. The one exception is Hartbury, where there's a university, which complicates the picture. The same community then said, well, where's the carbon coming from in our community, from the decisions that we all take? And this is just a simple breakdown of where those carbon emissions are coming from heating, from transport, from goods, from food. You've got to know where the problem areas are before you can tackle them in your community. And then what about the geographical area in which you're located? That has an effect on your carbon footprint as well. And in this community, agriculture is massive. So if you really want to make a difference, don't plant a tree, go and talk to your farmer. You know, don't be, if you like, a fool in terms of the way you use your energy to drive carbon down. Find out where you can make the biggest impact and hit that first. That's what really matters. And then we had another look in this particular community at the housing. How good or bad is the housing? And it turns out 70% of the houses have got an energy performance certificate. It's all available publicly online, and you can find out where the worst performers are. Hit the worst performers first. Go and talk to the people, because they can do something about getting their carbon emissions down. You don't have to wait for governments to tell you what to do. And then interestingly, this particular project is part of a bigger whole now for the EU Green Deal cluster. And I think tremendously, for the first time, the Commission are pulling projects together. They're looking to get maximum benefit from working together. So we've gone from the local, now we're looking through all these particular projects, bringing them together to see how we can get maximum impact from them, and amazing things start to happen. You start to find now, we're now talking to the Global Citizen Science Partnership, who are talking to UNEP about putting the information from what we're doing up onto the world, what they call the World Environment Situation Room, allowing our data to cascade straight up to the UN. What an amazing opportunity that comes from working together as a cluster. And just to finish, we need you. We need you to act on climate change. We need you to use less energy and emit less CO2. We need you to save on electricity costs. We need you to start thinking as communities. We need you to participate in this research project. You can actually take part if you live in one of the demo areas, but why wait until the end of the project? Track us on social media. Track us in terms of what we're delivering through the project on our website, and mimic what we're doing in your community, in your university. Thank you very much.
So, thanks a lot. I think a very clear message and well within time. Even before time, because my timer didn't stop yet. Are there any questions? Because I think it's a really urge to work on this.
Thank you for your presentation, Martin. Question, as you said, the roll-up is important. What role does citizen science global partnership rolling into the citizen situation room at the UN, what type of impact is that going to help or hinder in these exercises? Thank you.
It's actually very difficult to say at the moment, because I think we're still at that point where the World Environment Situation Room is offering us the opportunity to have a citizen science portal. So the way we design that portal and what we put on that portal really matters. But my own view is, and it's a personal view at this point in time, that if we can get the very best of the best citizen science programs up there, in an open science principle where you can share the software, share the hardware, share all the tools, share all the learning on the business planning that has gone into this particular program, it then becomes possible for somebody in Mumbai, somebody in Bangladesh, to pick up the same idea, take it across and use it. And so it's about disseminating and growing this belief that people can change this dynamic in terms of climate change. And it's something like, in the richer countries, 30% of our carbon emissions are under our control, the decisions that we make. So if we can get more people thinking like that, that's a step forward. If I go back into my own community, one of the things we did was go and talk to people. And what we found was, actually, we get climate change. We understand climate change. But don't lecture me about it anymore. But I don't think I can do anything about it. And then the conversation goes to, what are you actually doing in your life? And then when you start drilling in, you find that they're doing lots of things to drop their carbon down, but they're normally dressed up in terms of cost savings. So you draw those out, you share those, you build confidence across communities. What they're not good at is community effort, bringing the whole thing into the community concept. In a university scenario, not just the students, not just the staff, but all the people that make the university work need to be part of this package. The people who live around the university can be influenced by what you do. And it's the strength of the community and the number of people you get involved that drives the rate of change, and also drives the politicians to take note. Because we've always worked on this principle of top-down in climate change. I think for too long, waiting for governments to deliver. The one thing Stockholm Plus 50 showed us is that multilateral agreements are not working. They spend hours putting these agreements together, setting targets, and then the targets are not delivered. We need to drive this from the bottom up as well as the top down. And so I guess my answer to your question is, the World Environment Situation Room can be our shop window to share all this best practice with others. And then there should be no barrier to anybody else copying what we've already done. That's the open science principle. It's what UNESCO are looking to do with science. I hope that answers that one. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I would like to use the break for other questions to Martin.
Sorry, I went on a little long.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. And I think there's space enough to, you'll be around, I suppose, the coming days.
Yeah, there are brochures outside on the project if you want to see them. And on Friday, there is a poster session where you can come and ask me more questions and get involved. Because this is about getting involved.
Yeah, I think take action. That's very clear from the bottom up as well. So thanks a lot, Martin.